So I just saw A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski, and it was not that good. Now, this movie has been getting quite a bit of hype due to excessively good reviews from critics and from early test screenings and from the great marketing of this movie. This movie had one of the best marketing ploys for the last little while. The trailer for this movie had everything that a horror fan could want. It showed glimpses of a monster. It had a kind of vague story. It had a gimmick. It had a family at the heart. It had all these key things that a lot of people need to get interested. Much like last year's It Comes at Night. Both had very similar trailers. Both had very similar vagueness to them. Both had very similar central protagonists. And I think this movie, A Quiet Place, is the movie for people that were disappointed with It Comes at Night, because it is exactly what you think it is. It's a monster movie.
Explain the premise for everybody.
The premise is about a family who can't make any noise. Otherwise, horrible creatures come out of the woods and kill you.
It's
that simple.
Unfortunately, this movie is not as good as It Comes at Night, and it's not even close, really. It Comes at Night has everything from a movie I want to see, of course. It has great character writing, it has great performances, it has the vague kind of dystopian plot where you're left to decide or figure out on your own what everything is happening, how everything's happening, what happened to the world. And it's not so much a monster movie like the trailer for It Comes at Night pretends. It's a character drama, it's a character piece. And it has these deep-seated themes of anxiety and fear and all of these like very basic human traits that turn the family, the main family, against another family that they bring in. And that's what I love about It Comes at Night, is all the themes of the movie and all of the interesting plot developments in that movie. But A Quiet Place doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have any themes. It doesn't have any overall message. It doesn't have any bigger picture stuff. The world is kind of explained to a T. The monster is shown in excessive detail. All the characters are kind of boring, and all they do is just fight this monster. So there's not really any interesting character moments. The whole movie is just people walking around, and then a monster shows up. And that's the whole movie. And again, it's not bad. The movie is not bad because of this. It's not bad because it plays it safe. But it does play it very safe. And for that reason, it's boring. It's very boring to me. The first hour especially has a lot of weird and strange choices that John Krasinski as the director makes, and it doesn't have any monsters. So it's not that interesting. For a movie that banks on the monster, it is surprisingly lacking the monster. And I think that's because the movie just takes itself way too seriously. The whole movie is just this ominous music playing in the background, or these hammy, high-pitched strings and piano chords that tell you that this is an emotional scene. And it has a family unit at the center of the movie that gives it the heart of the movie. But it doesn't ever flesh the family out, and it never makes anything feel like the stakes are there, because you don't really care about them.
I've never done horror, you know what I mean? So I took his advice and I said, my job is to write a story about a family and something that people can connect to and fall in love with and be scared for this family. So all the scares should come because you don't want anything to happen to this group of people.
So the first solid hour, the movie's about an hour and a half, the first hour, almost literally nothing happens. We open with a scene where the family is shown walking to this convenience store and getting some supplies, getting some medicine, and then walking out. And the youngest kid, he's like 4, he picks up this NASA rocket with some batteries in it, and John Krasinski like slaps it out of his hand. He's like, no, it's too loud. But of course he's signing this. He says, no, it's too loud. Just like that. And that's all the hand signs. I know sign language, so that's exactly what he says. So the youngest daughter picks up the NASA rocket and hands it to the kid, and she's like, ooh, shit, don't tell. And then the kid picks the batteries up, of course, puts it in, and then halfway down the road to their house, he starts it up and it's really loud, and then he gets got by a monster. And that's how the movie opens. And it's a solid opening. It's a very interesting, it's very quiet. It's not like this huge horror opening like you expect with huge jump scares and crazy visuals and the house exploding. It's very quiet, it's very subdued, and I enjoy how the movie starts. But straight from here, the movie gets very weird. And there's a lot of choices that don't make a whole lot of sense. So at the very start of the movie, we see day 89. There's a title card that says day 89, and then we get that scene with the kid. And then the kid gets got, it says A Quiet Place, and then it says day 472 or something like that. And there's only one other instance in the movie of a title card, and it's 473. So there's only 3 times when that title card comes up, and by the end of the movie, I was like, why? Why is that even in there? It never explains what day it's from. Like, did the days start when the monsters first came? And I think it's just to show that a lot of time has gone on since the opening scene, but it doesn't make sense. Why do that? Why just open the movie with that scene, have the title card when he dies, that's fine, but then just continue the movie. And when we see that Emily Blunt is pregnant again, it's pretty clear that it's been at least 9 months since the opening scene. I think everyone has the power to assume that time has just gone on. So the fact that it's kind of forcing in these title cards to make everybody, all the dummies in the audience, catch up with where they are is a little ham-fisted. I think it's pretty common knowledge that a pregnancy is 9 months. So even people who go to see this movie, who don't really see movies very often, can have the power to assume. But the first hour is so bland. After that opening scene when the kid gets killed, nothing happens. We watch John Krasinski and Emily Blunt and their 2 left children kind of just do menial tasks. Like John Krasinski is monitoring some video cameras of his farm, and then he goes and like starts a fire on a roof, and he walks around and he checks some things and looks at some sand on the ground, and he pours some more there. And then Emily Blunt does some laundry, and then she walks around and like massages her stomach because you gotta know that there's a kid in there. And then the little boy does nothing, and then the little girl is like an angsty teenager, so she decides that she doesn't like her dad for no reason, and then she just runs away. So that's the first hour. Literally, just what I explained right there is the first hour. Everyone wanders around and does nothing. There's no actual character progression. It's just these endless scenes of people doing menial tasks that can be established in like 5 minutes, and then you can just kind of get on with things. But the movie stretches it and drags it out because it's fully aware that it does not have a story. And that is the biggest issue with A Quiet Place, is that there is no story here. And again, that's okay. There's a lot of things that this movie does that would be okay in other movies. Like It Comes at Night doesn't have a story, but it has amazingly well written, developed characters that drive the plot forward. And in A Quiet Place, it doesn't do that. There are no characters here. Emily Blunt is just the mom. John Krasinski is just the dad. The kid is just the kid. And then the girl is just an angsty teenager. It's just all these cliches and stereotypes put on top of these actors, and that's all that they ever amount to. There's no character arcs, there's no development, there's no character traits that are defined in the movie. They just wander around and do nothing until the monster shows up again. So when the monster finally shows up, you're over an hour into the movie, and by then I had lost all interest. The pacing is so bad in the first hour, and it stretches so much material that I was just completely checked out by the time the monster comes. And there's so many little things when the monster comes that make me laugh because I was so checked out. Like the fact that they can't make noise. So the girl takes like her hearing aid out and gets mad and throws it, but it just kind of hits a pillow. So it's just like, ah, and then it goes, and it makes me laugh because I'm like, oh, they wanted this to be this big emotional scene, and then she couldn't be loud, so it was just funny. So when the monster finally does show up in the last 30 minutes, it finally becomes the movie that everyone in the audience wanted it to be, and it's just this endless jump fest monster running around and killing people.
That's
It's that simple.
It's this thing that would be good if the characters were interesting, because again, there isn't a story here. The last 30 minutes of the movie, the first hour is wandering around. The last 30 minutes is just the monster wandering around. And that's the story. People wander around, and then the monster wanders around, and the people hide, and they go, oh. And then whenever the monster gets close, there's a lot of this. And that's another thing, is whenever that big music sting comes in, it kind of ruins the mood of the movie to me. There's a movie called not It Comes at Night, No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers that doesn't use a score at all. There's no music in the whole movie. And I feel like that could be appropriate for this movie. Don't have any music because it's supposed to be quiet. So you can have these loud sound effects because it makes sense. You can literally have built-in jump scares where you can just emphasize a sound because everyone has to be so quiet. So when something shatters, you can make it loud and make it a jump scare. And that makes sense. But here, they both do that, and then they just do traditional jump scares where somebody will grab somebody and it'll go wing and make you jump. So it's just kind of this collage of random ideas and random horror cliches that are just obnoxious, man. My eyes hurt like freaking heck. Like the concept is really interesting where you have to be quiet and then the monster, if the monster hears something, then it comes and gets you. Like that's prime for a horror movie. Like I said, you can literally have built-in jump scares and you can have a really intense mood to everything by not having music, by having these overemphasized sound design, and you can create this great atmosphere. But the movie just kind of hints at trying that, and then it just doesn't because it's too worried that if it goes too far, then people won't like it. I don't know. Like everything that it does feels like they took half measures, where the performances are all pretty good, but there's no characters. And then the monster and the concept of the movie is pretty good, but there's no story. It's very difficult to put into words just how by the numbers it is. Like I left the theater not feeling any way. There isn't one single scare in the movie that got me. There isn't one single scene that got under my skin. There isn't a jump scare that made me jump.
Let me tell you something, man. I watched it last night and I couldn't sleep after.
Really?
It was frightening.
And there's nothing to connect with. There's no, like I said, there's no overarching theme, or there's no interesting story with compelling developments. There's no great character work where you can really get involved in these people. It's just this by the numbers horror movie that has a neat gimmick and gets everyone into the circus tent. So if you like horror movies, you might like it. If you like jump fest movies, you might like it. I mean, my theater did. Most of the people in the theater were clapping by the end, standing up and clapping for the movie and saying, "We need more of this, John Krasinski. We want more, direct more." So there's an audience for it, and I think it'd be dumb of me to not admit that there is an audience for this movie. It's just that it's very obviously not for me. I love the slower paced build-up movies that explode at the end or have great characters that you can really get involved with. Where you're scared for them instead of scared of the situation. And I feel like A Quiet Place is the latter of that statement. It's just a movie that has scary situations, but not good enough characters to make you actually scared for the characters. It's just, this monster is spooky, so be spooked. So I'd probably give this a 5. So if you want to go see a movie that you've seen 100 times before and just want to go with a girl or a girlfriend and hold hands and be on the edge of your seat, then this may be for you. I don't know. I don't like it, so I'm just gonna finish off my Kool-Aid burst and then get out of here.